Welcome into 2-for-1 Drafts. Austin Gayle here with Mike Renner, ready to dive into our latest position rankings. We're going to do the offensive side of the ball today. We talked Senior Bowl. I'm done with the Senior Bowl. We can maybe bring it up in bits, but I can't do another preview, review, position breakdown of the Senior Bowl. I'm leaving Mobile in Alabama. We're in Cincinnati now, so let's do these position rankings for the offense side of the ball and get to defense tomorrow. Starting with the quarterbacks, the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to read out the full top 10. The full top 10 on PFF's latest big board. You can check out the full list on PFF.com. And then after we dive into the top 10, I want to bring up some key names, some key differences from around the media and what we're hearing from NFL teams. So starting with quarterback, number 1, Joe Burrow of LSU. No surprises there. Number 2, Tua Tagovailoa of Alabama. Tua Tagovailoa, apologize, with an asterisk next to his name, a little bit for the injury. And then number 3, Justin Herbert of Oregon. Number 4, Jake Fromm of Georgia. 5, Jordan Love, Utah State. 6, Anthony Gordon, Washington State, who had himself a pretty good week at the Senior Bowl. I said I wasn't going to bring it up. I said I wasn't going to bring it up. Here we are. I can't stop. Veets is still running through my veins. Number 7, Jacob Eason of Washington. 8, Cole McDonald of Hawaii with the dreadlocks and all. He's coming to the mainland at number 8 overall. Number 9, Jalen Hertz of Alabama. And 10, Josh Love of San Jose State. Okay, it's an interesting top 10. I want to start moving past the first 3. Burrow, Tagovailoa, Herbert, I've heard enough. Give me Jake Fromm, number 4, the Georgia kid.
Yeah, we really haven't talked about Jake Fromm yet so far. He declared early, surprised a lot of people. I thought he was pretty much a lock to come back from his senior year, but he has improved. You know, every single year of his career, he has gotten better. Kind of had a bad second half of this 2019 season, though. The big things with him are he will play within structure. He will run your offense to a T. He is very good at getting the ball out of his hands quickly, where it needs to be, reading a defense, getting from 1 to 2 to 3, balls out, not taking sacks, that sort of thing. He can do that. He can also protect the football at a very high level, only, I think, 7 turnover-worthy plays this whole past season. And so he's going to get the game manager sort of label to him because of those 2 things, and very much deservedly so. Like, he does not make plays outside of structure. When he's, I think I look back in all the games he's been asked to drop back to pass 35-plus times. He has something like a 64.3 grade in those games. Like, he's just not been good, and it was like a 51.8 completion percentage in those games. Like, when they ask him to put it on his shoulders, it hasn't been good, but when he sort of can manage a game, when he's a lot of play action, when you've got the running game going and you can rely on him to not lose you a game is, I think, the best way to put it for Jake Fromm. So there's a lot to like. Been starting ever since his freshman year. You have 3 years now of a sample with him. I just think, yes, he doesn't have the high end of a guy who's ranked behind him in a Jordan Love or a Jacob Eason. He doesn't have those plays on tape, but I think he can be a starting quarterback in the NFL and a competent starting quarterback in the NFL. And that's why he checks in at number 4. Don't love any of these guys after the top 2, but that's why he's at number 4.
I think something that stuck out to me there, and something that I also saw with Jake Fromm is when they asked him to put the gas pedal down, put your floor down on the gas pedal and really get aggressive, is when he started to make the mistakes. Also, he kind of struggled a bit under pressure. I think when pressured when he wasn't in a perfect situation, you start to see those flaws come out. But like you said, he has a high floor, and with that floor, he comes in at number 4. I want to dive in a little bit more on why you have him over Jordan Love, though. Jordan Love at 5. Some people have Jordan Love over Herbert in this class. Why Fromm over Love? Give me some specifics on that.
Well, I think it's just because I think Fromm is an easier projection. Like, I can see Fromm going to an NFL offense next year and not looking out of place whatsoever. Like, I think he can run an NFL offense. I think it could get ugly if you throw Jordan Love out there or if he starts at any point over the next couple years in the NFL. That decision making is very worrisome, and the inconsistency is very worrisome. Fromm, I just think you know what you're getting, and it's a little safer projection. So it's like one's like a lottery ticket, one's like a sure thing. The sure thing might only be a scratch off that gets you $5 in return, but the lottery ticket could get you nothing. So that's to me what it is right now.
Let's skip down to number 8, Cole McDonald of Hawaii. He comes in at number 8 on PFF's latest quarterback rankings in the 2020 NFL Draft. Talk about a guy who has had some high end, but he's also got low end, a roller coaster ride that you can kind of fall in love with the dreadlocks. I'm a big fan of Cole McDonald when you watch him, but I can also understand why he was benched in parts of this season because of that low end play.
Yeah, and it's so weird. He's one of the oddest prospects in this entire draft. One, because of Hawaii's offense was one of the most unusual offenses in college football. Like they went 4 wide every single play, or they had 4 wide at least every single play. 5 wide, about I think it was like 100 dropbacks. He had 5 wide completely. So empty sets, ton of that. Like, he was passing. It was not a run-heavy offense by any means, so kind of the opposite of Jake Fromm. And you saw a lot of good on his tape. His underneath accuracy was great on throws, 1 to 9 yards down the football field. He ranked 16th in all of college football in terms of adjusted completion percentage. Like, he puts the ball where it needs to be underneath. So a lot of guys with big arms, a lot of guys that look the part, struggle with that underneath accuracy. No, he's good in that regard. But at the same time, he threw more balls to, like, stationary defenders than any quarterback in college football. He was top 5 in turnover-worthy plays this year. So those are worrisome figures, yes. But I do think there's still a lot on his tape in terms of just arm strength, underneath accuracy. I think there's something to work with there. And if you put him in a scheme that's not as crazy as Hawaii's, I think you'll get the best out of him.
Looking at some of his stats here, 31 big-time throws, a number I expect him to be over 30 given the sample size of dropbacks, but also 29 turnover-worthy plays. That's an insane figure. Again, it goes back to that roller coaster. And turnover-worthy plays are more predictive year over year from college to the NFL, also college over college, than interceptions. So looking at turnover-worthy plays has a ton of value at the quarterback position. Also, 12.5 yards average depth of target. This guy was pushing the ball downfield. Like you said, a passing offense that was aggressive. I think there's going to be guys that like some of the tools with this guy and think they can mold him in to something special at number 8 on PFF's latest quarterback rankings. Before we jump off the quarterbacks, let's jump right down to number 9. Jalen Hertz of Alabama didn't have a great Senior Bowl week, was all over the place from an accuracy standpoint, a ton of miscommunication, which was kind of weird down there in Mobile, but he comes in at number 9 on PFF's latest QB rankings.
Yeah, and we're going to be lower on him than the rest of probably the evaluation community, or maybe not even. I think people are just kind of low on him in general right now because you don't see those special throws down the football field. He only had 19 big-time throws this past year despite a very high average depth of target. The average depth of target was something like 11.5 yards down the football field and only had a middling number of big-time throws. You look at his big-time throw numbers compared to Kyler Murray last year. Kyler Murray, 29. Hertz 19. Baker Mayfield the year before that had 35. So this is an offense that sort of is a downfield passing offense. It's conducive to, if you can make those special throws, it will give you every opportunity to do that. Hertz just hasn't been able to over the course of his career. His ball placement down the field is not great. Again, we saw it in the Senior Bowl. Hasn't been his calling card. And then the other thing is, he's going to get Lamar Jackson sort of, everyone's going to be, Lamar worked out, Jalen Hurts can too, because of his running ability, but his running ability is not that special, to be honest. Like, I think he's going to run in like the 4.7s. Like, I don't think I don't think he could even play running back. We always talk about Kyler Murray, if he was a running back, would be an elite running back. Lamar Jackson, if he was a wide receiver, could be an elite wide receiver. Jalen Hurts not that level athletically. Yeah. He's a good athlete for the position. He had over 1,000 rushing yards this past year, but he is not special by any means. NFL defenders should bring him down on first contact pretty much the majority of the time. So that's the worry with me is, yes, his legs are a weapon, but they're not so much so that defenses are really going to sell out to stop it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think people were quick to, I think you've even said it, to say the Lamar Jackson, even Tyrod Taylor way of winning with Jalen Hurts. But the problem is that he's not as accurate as Tyrod Taylor, and he's not as athletic as Lamar Jackson. So you're getting a poor man's of both, therefore making already a limited quarterback as is, making it that much harder to build an offense around him and win with him. All right, let's dive into the running back position. I'm going to go through the top 10 again and hit on some key names. Number 1, kind of surprising to a lot of people, I'm sure, Zack Moss of Utah. Guy was insane from a forced missed tackle perspective. He comes in at number 1. DeAndre Swift of Georgia, a pass-catching back that we covet for that pass-catching ability at number 2. Number 3, we have Jonathan Taylor of Wisconsin. 4, J.K. Dobbins of Ohio State. 5, Clyde Edwards-Helaire of LSU, a very fun player to watch. I think he's an exciting guy between the tackles and in space. Number 6, Keyshawn Bond, smaller guy coming out of Vanderbilt, but he's packed, stacked, loaded. This guy is jacked to the gills. Number 7, Antonio Gibson, running back this time. He played a lot of wide receiver at Memphis, very similar to Tony Pollard in that he played slot receiver, outside receiver, only had, I think, 33 rushes from a running back position at Memphis, but he played running back at the Senior Bowl, looked pretty special there. He also forces missed tackles at a high level. 8, Cam Akers of Florida State. Eno Benjamin coming at 9, Arizona State. And 10, Reggie Corbin, my guy, former rugby player, Illinois product. I think he has some very splash plays on tape as well. That's the 10. Let's start with 1. That's what everyone wants to hear about. Zack Moss of Utah. Why is he the best back in this class?
Not a lot of people have him as their top running back. A lot of people go Swift, Taylor, Dobbins. Those seem to be one of those 3, but we're going to go with Moss because what he does well, we know translates to the NFL. Being able to break tackles. And he's done it throughout his entire career. He has been one of the best, and he peaked this year with the 3rd best season we've ever seen in terms of missed tackles forced per attempt. Actually, one of the only ones better was Travis Etienne with him this past season. So in terms of running backs in the NFL right now, he will be the best in terms of broken tackles per attempt. Had 87 broken tackles this past year on the ground, 15 more through the air, and he's an accomplished receiver as well throughout his career. 28 receptions this season, only 1 drop, and 15 broken tackles, like I said, on those 28 receptions is a crazy high rate. So him out in space is a playmaker, and I think he comes from a Utah offense that's very projectable to the NFL and the concepts they ran. So he's just, to me, he's safer then. You know he's going to be good at those things. DeAndre Swift, Untitled J.K. Dobbins have other question marks in terms of not as high a broken tackle rate, not as high yards after contact per attempt necessarily. I just think Zack Moss, you know what you're going to be getting at the next level when it's a quality running back. I don't see any of these guys necessarily as sort of that first-round special conversation like we were talking about with Travis Etienne in terms of he's just a home run threat waiting to happen. He would have been the top back in his class, but without him on that list, I do think Zack Moss. If I were to be taking one, it would be Zack Moss.
Still very surprised that Travis Etienne returned to school because this guy was our number one back the entire offseason before he announced that he would be going back to Clemson because, I mean, he's that good. I mean, he broke the PFF record for forced missed tackles per attempt. This guy was elusive and then some. Zack Moss coming at number one now because he's actually going to the 2020 NFL draft. And I think he's a very special player. You talk to the data scientists here at PFF. Elusiveness translates from college to pro, and Zack Moss has a ton of that. That's why I think you said, I think a good word there is safe. You feel comfortable projecting him to the next level because you know what he's going to do and do well. Moving forward down the list a little bit, and you already mentioned the 3 backs, but I want to go to number 7, Antonio Gibson of Memphis. A very exciting player. You watch this guy run routes. You said this to me. Like very sloppy from a route running standpoint.
There's a reason why he didn't actually see the field as a wide receiver. He's not a great route runner, but he can catch. The hands weren't an issue. It was more just like
he's also an insane athlete. I mean, this guy returned kicks, played slot receiver, outside receiver, halfback. I think he's a really versatile piece that is becoming so much more coveted in today's NFL. A guy that can be a mismatch weapon where you play him.
Yeah. So 38 receptions this past season. Broke 17 tackles on those, which is just, I mean, that's a crazy rate for anyone. And then as a rusher, he only had 33 attempts on the season and broke 16 tackles on those. Like he is just was shredding dudes all season long. I guess not even really all season long. Only really played the second half of the season offensively. But when he got the ball in his hands, he was just very, very difficult to bring down. And again, that's something we see translate again and again. And then the added receiving ability is, yes, his routes were kind of rough for a wide receiver. If you're going to be playing him full-time wide receiver, that's probably not going to be his best fit, but his routes are good compared to running backs. And his hands are very good when compared to running backs. So I think you get him the ball out in space, get a little creative with him. The comp for him and the guy was Ty Montgomery, who was very similar in terms of what he did when he got to the NFL. So I think that's what you could be getting in Antonio Gibson.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see where he goes because I think he could play early in his NFL career and offer value in multiple areas, special teams, receiver, running back, wherever you decide to put him, this guy's probably going to add some value. Let's go to the wide receiver position. I'll say it and I'll say it again. We've said it all offseason long. It's a deep, very good wide receiver class. There's 2 guys at the top that are true number ones, guys that you want to take in the first round. CeeDee Lamb of Oklahoma at 1, and 2, Jerry Jeudy of Alabama coming in there, and then 3, Laviska Shenault Jr. of Colorado. Not necessarily an impressive route runner. Still needs to grow in that regard, get better from a refinement standpoint, but a special player in a similar way to Antonio Gibson in that you play this guy anywhere, he's going to offer a ton of value. 4, you have Henry Ruggs of Alabama, a speedster. 5, T. Higgins of Clemson, the bigger receiving prospect that has shown great things in contested catch situations. Then you have 6, Jalen Reagor of TCU. 7, Brandon Ayuk of Arizona State. Still wish we got to see him at the Senior Bowl. He got flagged for his physical down there. Didn't get a chance to participate and see him. Very explosive dude. 8, Denzel Mims of Baylor. We did see him at the Senior Bowl, and that guy rose quite a bit. Denzel Mims, a very fun player to watch at the Senior Bowl. Michael Pittman Jr. of USC at 9, and 10, Juwan Jennings of Tennessee. I know a guy that you really like. He drops to 10 a little bit after what was a rough Senior Bowl, up and down maybe for him, but he drops to 10, Juwan Jennings of Tennessee. I want to skip past the top guys. We've been talking about the top guys all year long. Let's go to Jalen. Let's go to Jalen Reagor of TCU, a guy that doesn't have the 2019 production. You look at his production in 2019, you get scared. What happened? Then you look at his quarterback was not great. they didn't use him creatively, kind of kept him at right wide receiver his entire career at TCU. But when you look at this guy and you look at the traits he brings to the table, the speed, the change of direction, I'd even say ball skills, looking at his 2018 season, he is a very good receiver in this class.
Yeah, there's sort of this theme within the top 8 here on the list, and it's explosiveness. Like you want guys who are freak athletes at their wide receiver position who can separate. And I think that's Jalen Reagor. Yes, he didn't have the production. We've talked about it again and again, why he necessarily didn't have the production in terms of leaving him on one side of the field, not having a good quarterback situation, not featuring him on screens whatsoever in that offense, not finding ways to get him targets. And so that was his issues, but like he attacks the ball extremely well in the air. He is very physical at the catch point, despite being undersized. I think he's sort of, if him and Henry Ruggs' situations were flipped, we might have him flipped on this list. It's impossible to sort of not have that worry about the production in the back of your mind, but like he might be in Ruggs' situation because that's how just explosive of an athlete Reagor is. And so I think him and then the guy after him on this list, Brandon Ayuk, are just, they're not polished products by any means. There's question marks about how they set up their routes. Or will they be technicians at the next level? I don't think that's going to happen right out the gate. But both of them are just guys where get the ball in their hands and good things tend to happen. Ayuk averaged over 10 yards after the catch this year and still averaged 18.3 yards per reception. That is an absurd figure for any wide receiver, let alone one guy playing the Power 5. So both these guys offer a ton in terms of just explosiveness and downfield ability that I think the fact that they're coming in at 6 and 7 on this list is kind of crazy with how good they are still.
I want to get back to Jalen Reagor. You mentioned a thing that kind of stuck out to me with Henry Ruggs. So there's two things there. If he was used like Henry Ruggs was used, even at TCU, things would have been different. Like get him more involved creatively, play him in the slot vertical, all those things. He would have better production. And two, if he played at Alabama with an accurate quarterback, he'd also have very good production. I think you have to think about that situation. I pulled the numbers. He had the 4th lowest percentage of accurate targets, on-target passes in his direction of any receiver in college football. That's insane. It's hard to produce at a high level when you have such an inaccurate quarterback throwing you the football. Another thing, too, when we talked to him, I think you mentioned it, but Jalen Reagor was used at wide receiver. That's where TCU wanted him. That was the design. But this guy could play in the slot. You can get creative with his usage and find ways to get him the football. Can we get a little bit more on Brandon Ayuk, though? I think there's people that compare him to N'Keal Harry, but I think this is a better player than N'Keal Harry of Arizona State.
Oh, I think he's much better. And
there's a ton of receivers that are better than N'Keal Harry.
That's almost the worry, though. It's like, they're kind of the thing that's in the back of your mind. It's like, why wasn't he, back in 2018, they're on the same team. Why wasn't he featured more? 474 yards that year, only 33 catches, massive breakout this year with 65 catches for 1,192 yards. Why was he not seeing a bulk, just seeing more targets? And he actually even talked about that at the Senior Bowl, and that, N'Keal Harry was a 5-star. N'Keal Harry, ever since his freshman year, they were like, this is our NFL guy. We're going to, give him. They were going to design plays around him and not necessarily anyone else. And he said he was frustrated by that. But I think he proved this year that maybe that was more of a coaching decision. And I do think that, yes, the lack of production as a junior coming out of 2 years of junior college back in 2018 is a little bit of a concern. But I don't think, after hearing him explain it and kind of the situation, I'm not too worried about it at all. The fact that he balled out this year is really all I need to know.
Let's go to the tight end position. It's overall a pretty weak tight end class. There's not a ton of superstars in this top 10, but let's run through it. Hunter Bryant of Washington. It's funny that we even call him a tight end. He's going to be used as like this move tight end piece at the next level. I don't think people are going to love him as a blocker. I think he's a lighter guy. Like Evan Ingram is just an easy comp for Hunter Bryant, seeing what he does at the college level. Then you have Bryson Hopkins of Purdue, another receiving threat that's not necessarily going to wow you as a blocker, but his receiving ability is really what has him at the top of this tight end chart here. And number 3, Adam Troutman of Dayton put on a show at the Senior Bowl, liked his route running ability, liked his athleticism coming out of a small school. Cole Kmet of Notre Dame, he's at 4. Cheyenne O'Grady of Arkansas at 5. Still at 5 until another red flag pops up, because this guy's one more off-field concern away from, okay, you're probably not playing in the NFL, because because he's got an interesting backstory.
He might not even assist.
Exactly, yeah. But I mean, when he's on the field and everything's going okay, he's one of the better tight ends in this class. The problem is he struggles to find the field. He struggles to wear a jersey because Arkansas, obviously moving on from him late in the season. Harrison Bryant of FAU coming in at 6. He had a very good Senior Bowl as well. Really liked what Harrison Bryant put on tape in Mobile. Jared Pinkney at 7 of Vanderbilt. Josiah DeGara of Cincinnati's finest, University of Cincinnati. Go Bearcats here, hometown Cincinnati. Number 9, Stephen Sullivan of LSU. Another guy that a wide receiver turned tight end that when he went to the Senior Bowl, didn't expect a ton from him, but he's just faster than everybody. This guy's legit fast. Like, was way faster than a lot of the people he was going against in Mobile. And number 10, Albert O of Missouri. I'm not going to get into that last name. That thing's aggressive. But Albert O of Missouri drops to 10. Some people liked him as the best tight end in this class before the season progressed, but then you see these other guys coming in for him. Let's go ahead and jump to Cole Kmet of Notre Dame. I think there are some people who have him as tight end number 1. He comes in at number 4 for our latest top 10 tight ends. Where are you at with Cole?
I go back and forth because just being a Notre Dame fan, went to Notre Dame. Like I've seen a lot of good tight ends come through Notre Dame. Whether it's Anthony Fasano, Tyler Eifert, Kyle Rudolph, whatever. All these guys who have been then productive NFL players. And to me, he just never really seems like that. Like I just never thought of him in that regard. When watching them, I never was like, oh, he's like a weapon for them. And all of a sudden, I went back and flipped on the All-22, and I'm like, he was open a little more than what he got credit for. What Ian Book was finding him. This guy has legit speed to test the seams. And the thing I never really quite realized was his size. He's 6'6", 258. Like, he is put together. He is actually a bigger tight end. And I think if with all the undersized sort of move athletic tight ends, there is still room for your inline blocker, your guy who is actually the size of a tight end, who is then a mismatch weapon because of that size. A guy who you can't feel comfortable putting a 5'11 safety on and asking him to play man coverage because you'll just get, almost like the Zach Hertz of the world, who's a very incredibly physical route runner. I think that could be Kmet at the next level. You don't have to necessarily always just be, just pure speed to win, but I think he has enough of that as well. So I was more impressed the more I watched him on tape. Some guys have him as tight end 1. I'm still not getting completely on board with that, but I'm a fan of Kmet's game, and obviously, unsurprisingly, being a Notre Dame fan. But like I said, I wasn't that much when he was actually playing for Notre Dame when I was watching him this past season. I
mean, go Irish. I mean, the bottom line is just a go Irish comment there. But I really do like the top 3 guys because of what they add as receivers. And I think when you look at the Super Bowl coming up, George Kittle, Travis Kelce, guys that can heavily impact the passing game, be guys who the other defense coordinators game plan against. I think that's what you're capable of with guys like Hunter Bryant, Bryson Hopkins, etc. Let's jump to this offensive tackle group. Oh my gosh, there is a ton of talent at offensive tackle in this class. A lot of underclassmen too as well that you guys can get on board with. And what they're doing right now, let's start with number 1, Andrew Thomas of Georgia, athletic, smooth mover. This guy's been number 1 as our tackle for a while now. 2, Jedrek Wills Jr. of Alabama, the right tackle, very explosive. The run blocking tape is fun to watch. I mean, this guy just buries kids game in and game out. Number 3, Tristan Wirfs of Iowa. There's rumor that maybe you could kick him into guard. That's where he starts immediately at the next level, but he has tackle potential as well. Josh Jones of Houston, a superstar, Senior Bowl, got up to number 16 on PFF's latest draft board. He comes in at 4 on our offensive tackle rankings. Mekhi Becton of Louisville at number 5. 6, Lucas Niang of TCU. 7, Jack Driscoll of Auburn. 8, Matt Pert of UConn, another guy that people were watching closely at the Senior Bowl. Number 9, Ezra Cleveland of Boise State. And 10, Trey Adams of Washington, another guy that before the season, people had this guy number 1, number 2 in the offensive tackle class, now kind of falling a bit with these underclassmen jumping up. Let's start with number 1. Let's dive deep into Andrew Thomas. I really do think this guy's a big needle mover at the top of the draft.
Yeah, I just think this group of tackles, you go 1 through 4 for us, are all studs. Andrew Thomas of Georgia, Jedrek Wills, Alabama, Tristan Wirfs, Iowa, Josh Jones of Houston. Grading-wise, athletically wise, all the boxes you want to see tick, these guys tick them, and that's why we have them in the top 4, and then Mekhi Becton down at 5, and a ways down on our draft boards because he doesn't necessarily tick that production box. We've talked about in terms of his 1, just not having a lot of true pass sets, 2, he's just not performing well on them. But it's one of those classes where I'm not sure you can necessarily miss. And if you want to order these guys, however you want to order this top 4 group, I'm not going to argue with you. Like they they all have very strong pros and cons. Jedrek Wills, easily the most athletic of the bunch. Tristan Wirf's probably the best run blocker of the bunch. Thomas, I think, blends both of those two.
At a high level. I mean, his grading profile, Andrew Thomas's grading profile, you speak to the athleticism, the size, like he is graded so well for us. And our offensive line and defensive line grades at the college level are some of the most predictive. Compared to other positions, they're some of the most predictive. And I think seeing how he's graded, see what he weighed in at, I know he's going to blow up the combine. I mean, Andrew Thomas at 1, I feel really comfortable about.
Yeah, I just think these guys are good. Like, and I think they're gonna go highly. And like,
Hot take.
I don't have a ton of question marks about these guys. And even Wirfs, who started off a little higher on our board earlier in the season and is a step behind Thomas and Wills now on our draft board. He was still dominant down the stretch in terms of 1 pressure in his last 7 games. Like he's gotten better every single year over the course of his career. So, like, I'm not going to argue if someone's going to be like, no, Wills is better than Thomas. I'm not going to argue about the tackle class this season. It's a good tackle class.
It's a good problem to have, too, especially if you do need offensive line help, which I don't think there's a team in the NFL, all 32, that would say, yeah, we're good on offensive line. We don't need to even groom that position. We are set. I think every team at the top and back of the first round would love to have one of these guys. I think you're going to see a handful of these guys, a run at offensive tackle early in the draft. And before we jump off the offensive tackle position, I know we talked about it on the Tuesday podcast, but talk to me about this difference. You mentioned the top 4 with high regard, but then here comes number 5, Mekhi Becton, the Mountain. You know, this guy's getting comped to guys in Game of Thrones. And people love him. You talk to NFL teams, they love him. But you have him at number 5, and he's still not in that conversation with this top 4.
So he has a weird sort of history in terms of when Petrino was there back in his freshman and sophomore year. They would flip tackles based on strength and formation, which is just like, it's 2019. You can't be flipping tackles and expecting them to hold up in pass protection. Like, it's completely different footwork, completely different. Like, that is a run-based decision. That's just putting your guy in a situation to fail. And he had a 60.4 pass blocking grade back in 2018. Allowed 30 pressures. Like, it wasn't good. Like, he was bad in pass protection. It got ugly. Obviously, new scheme, changed it up this year. Only allows 12 pressures. Pass blocking grade goes to 79.2. But it's also a very run-heavy scheme, a very play-action-heavy scheme. You're not asking him to pass protect a lot. And when he was asked to, like I mentioned before, it wasn't necessarily great. And so we want to see guys, 1, pass protect a lot. We like to see reps. Practice makes perfect, as they say. And 2, do it at a high level. Like, we want to see both of those things before we're going to get on board with you as a top prospect. And Becton hasn't checked those boxes. And so that's what it is. We're not saying that he can't be good. We're not saying that, in a few years down the line, we're not saying that these physical traits that he had won't develop into a top-notch offensive tackle. It's just there's more inherent risk when you haven't seen a guy do it. So that's what it's going to be lower on.
All right, let's jump to interior offensive line. I think I went into the Senior Bowl not super excited about this interior offensive line class, but then there are a couple guys that popped off down in Mobile. And in addition to that, there's some other ones that weren't at the Senior Bowl ranked high here. Number 1, let's start with number 1, Netani Muti of Fresno State. This guy battled injuries his entire career, but when this guy's healthy, he's the best guard in the country. I mean, this guy is very impressive as a run blocker, also stout in pass protection. Number 2, a Senior Bowl standout, Jonah Jackson of Ohio State. Number 3, Tyler Biadasz of Wisconsin. His 2018 season, his grading was insane. Like, he went into this year like, okay, he's probably going to be the best interior offensive lineman in this class. Dropped a little bit in 2019. His 2019 tape is not impressive. I want to jump more into that down the road here. Number 4, Calvin Throckmorton of Oregon. Played some tackle down at the Senior Bowl. I think they needed some tackle help with some dropouts there, but he projects as a guard at the next level. 5, Damian Lewis of LSU. A Gabe Jackson comp. This guy's built like a Lego block, just like fit. 330 pounds. I think, 6'2". Dude is an insane build, but he does not get bullied. I'll tell you that right now. Nick Harris of Washington, kind of the opposite. More of an athletic guy. Side-to-side mover, can get bullied by some bigger dudes. Logan Stenberg of Kentucky at number 7, dubbed Mr. Nasty in the SEC. Number 8, you have Lloyd Cushenberry of LSU, the center. And number 9, Cesar Ruiz of Michigan. 10, Robert Hunt of Louisiana. That's the full 10 for the interior offensive line group. Let's get back up to number 1. I'm going to tell you right now, Mike, there's not going to be a lot of people, not a lot of media, not a lot of NFL teams that have Netani Muti as their number 1 interior offensive lineman, but you're sticking him at 1.
I'm not sure if that. I mean, there might be some NFL teams that do. Like, this guy, if you just go watch the tape like it is the best tape. That's why he's the number one guy on our boys, because he has the best tape. He has an interior offensive lineman. Yes, he has shoulder injury this past year, Achilles injury the year before that, and has played only 318 snaps over the last 2 years. That's concerning, and that's you can't take away injury red flags from guys. Like those are things that happen, and you're not going to be able to prove that wrong during the spring in the pre-draft process. That's nothing you can necessarily just overcome. But the on-field, the performance, and it's not just the highlight reel blocks in the run game. Those are awesome, and I love those. It's the pass protection. He has 14 pressures allowed in his entire college career, 697 pass blocking snaps between an offensive tackle and guard for Fresno State. Like, he has gotten the job done consistently in pass protection, no matter when it's been called upon him. He's completely unafraid of the bull rush. No one moves this guy backwards. And then he's more athletic than, he's not just your hulking, he's not Damian Lewis, he's not Lloyd Cushenberry. Those guys are bricks, but like they do struggle to move laterally. He doesn't. He's smooth. He is a natural athlete, and that's why we have him at number one. To me, he's a better version of Will Hernandez coming out.
Wow.
Will Hernandez was just like, you're not going to move me. That was Will Hernandez coming out of UTEP. No one really pushed him back into the pocket ever, and he excelled there in pass pro at UTEP, and has been solid in the NFL. I think Muti is just a better, more physically imposing version of Will Hernandez.
With Netanya Muti, I would recommend two things for new and ongoing podcast listeners. One, watch his highlight tape on YouTube. Yeah. And two, read about this guy's background, because he is just like this like folklore from coming out of Hawaii. Like, people talk about this guy like Sasquatch. Like, have you seen him? I think I spotted him down in Fresno. But yeah, this guy is a special dude on and off the field. If he can manage to stay healthy, I think he's going to be destined for a good NFL career. Let's jump to number 3, Tyler Biadasz. I want to dive more into the concerns on his 2019 tape. What differed for you from 2018 to 2019? Why the drop-off in grading, and how concerned should you really be with that drop-off of it?
Well, it was more just he put more bad on tape. He graded well still this year. I think he was still a top 5 graded center in all of college football, but he put more bad on tape against, you go to the bowl game against Oregon, got beat a few times in pass pro. I think you just saw some balance issues just get more exacerbated, and you want to see a guy improving every single year. You want to see things getting better, because every position, but offensive line especially, you have a massive jump going from college to pro, and he wasn't getting better. And so that's why he moves down the board. It's not because he necessarily got worse per se. Like, it wasn't so much that it got worse. It was just the things that you wanted to see fixed didn't get fixed. And so he just might not be this sort of top 30 prospect that we saw him going in. Now we have him more around the 50 range, like a mid to late second rounder, I'd say. At this point, like, I still feel very good about him in his zone run blocking scheme. Still love his technique, his consistency in that regard, but I just think he has some balance issues, can get a little top heavy in pass pro, and not the most physically imposing center. But I mean, still checks in at number 3 on this. It's nothing no slouch.
All right, let's jump to number 4, Calvin Throckmorton, kicking inside to guard, probably in the NFL. You see him as one of the better players, one of the better tackle converts to guard in this class. Yeah,
and I kind of just wanted to touch on the fact that he was a tackle at Oregon, but he did play like every single
position.
At least one snap at every single position there. Had multiple starts at center, multiple starts at
an offensive line coach's dream.
Yeah, like he's been around the block, but then he goes to the Senior Bowl and they play him like almost exclusively at tackle there because the tackle drops out and he was the guy they called on to replace him. But the dude is not a tackle. Like he is very much short arms. Doesn't have the sort of lateral agility that you need. Not great in space. He's not going to be a tackle, but I think he can be a very good offensive guard or center if that's where you want him to play in a phone booth. Dude is very good, a people mover, plays with great leverage.
The grading profile is great. I mean, he's graded really well at Oregon.
Very good in pass protection, and he gets himself in trouble when he is out in space, when he has to react laterally to guys. That was when he got himself in trouble, and you saw it, like I said, in the Senior Bowl. But it's very different. He's the very quintessential tackle in college, guard convert, and you put him there and you just plug him there for the next 5-10 years. Like, he is going to be, I think, a solid guard at the NFL level.
I know another guy you wanted to highlight in this list of 10 was Robert Hunt of Louisiana. Comes in at number 10 on this list, but there are some special traits on film.
Yeah, and so I threw him at 10, or he's at 10 right now on the list because I just haven't seen it against better competition. And it's one of those things where you need to see it, and that's why it was really sad when he dropped out of the Senior Bowl, because I thought he could have gone from 10 to the 4 range, made a similar jump, got up in that Calvin Throckmorton conversation, because the dude is a brick. Like, he is just so well built for the offensive guard position in the NFL. But it's easy to throw around. It's easy to impose your will against guys who won't be playing in the NFL ever.
Yeah.
Like, it's easy to do that. It's easy to look good on a highlight reel when you're playing 230-pound edge rushers. So Louisiana, he played right tackle there. Didn't pass a lot in that offense either, so we haven't seen him pass protect a lot. So just kind of hesitant on him. But he's a guy who, if we see more and how he moves at the combine, that sort of thing, could keep pushing his way up our board.
Had an injury that cut his season short, only played through week 8. But what I will say, looking at his grading profile, improved every year. Overall, from an overall grade standpoint, from 69.7 in 2016 across 925 snaps to an 87.1 overall grade, including an 86.0 run blocking grade in 2019. I got to be honest, I haven't watched a ton of his tape, but I mean, looking at some of these grades here, I think you have to be impressed with his projection and how much he's improved. Would love to have seen him go down at the Senior Bowl, but combine will be big for him, seeing where he tests and things like that. That's going to do it for the Wednesday edition of the 2-for-1 Drafts podcast. This has been Austin Gayle and Mike Renner. Remember, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. Again, Austin Gayle, Mike Renner, 2-for-1 Drafts.
You want to get rid of me and get back to more great PFF YouTube content? All you have to do is push that button right there and subscribe. Thanks for watching.